The Qur'an is a miracle. Nothing else like the Qur'an has ever been produced. The Qur'an is the strongest proof that Muhammad was a true prophet. We hear these claims made quite often, but do we truly understand them? What makes the Qur'an so otherworldly? Why is the Qur'an a miracle?
Let's look at this book itself and ask, is there anything in this book that indicates its divine origins? And I will say that when Christians and Muslims want to argue with atheists and prove the existence of God, we say that there is design in nature and that design points to a designer. Moreover, as Colin Ronan has pointed out in his book, The Universe, there is mathematics behind everything in the universe, the arrangement of stars and planets and galaxies and everything, and that mathematics points to a grand mathematician who put it all together. The Quran mentions a word and also a contrasting word, and though these words are in very different places in the Quran, it turns out now, as we can see, that the two words, the one and its contrast, are used an equal number of times. For example, hot and cold are used in the Quran 4 times each. Man and woman, 24 times each. The Quran in Surah 3, verse number 59 says that the example of Jesus with God is like Adam, meaning that God created them both. Now we can see that, in fact, Jesus and Adam are each mentioned 25 times in the Quran. We always speak of the devil and angels in contrast. It turns out that the devil is mentioned, Satan is mentioned 68 times in the Quran, and angels mentioned also 68 times. Now that's if we take the words by themselves. If we take the words with all of their adjuncts and variations, it turns out that there's 88 on one side and also 88 on the other side. So it's balanced again. We contrast this life with the life hereafter. The word for this life in the Quran occurs 115 times, and also the word for the life hereafter occurs 115 times. How did this coincidence come about? Are all of these just coincidence, or is this a plan? And was this a plan of human beings? From what I know of the Quran and its history, this is evidence of the divine origin of the Quran. We have to ask, who put this in there? And we realize that no human being did, and this is the word of God. In a similar vein, I can say that the word for month in the singular occurs in the Quran exactly 12 times. And the word for day in the singular, without any suffixes, occurs in the Quran 365 times. Now, how did that come about? What are the chances that you pick up a book, any book, and find that it uses the word day exactly 365 times? Many of you write essays for school, and your word processor nowadays will count the number of words in the entire essay. But how many of you would bother to check how many times did you use a particular word in that essay? Hardly. Now, if you go back in hindsight and you've written a book and you find that you've used the word day 365 times, you'll say that's remarkable. It is a coincidence, but nothing more. But if you find that all of these things are lining up, how many coincidences are you going to have? Now, this shows that God is behind the Quran. But there is also another argument in the same lines that will show that we have the entire Quran today, and that this is not only due to divine intervention to give us this Quran, but divine intervention to safeguard this Quran, so we know that we have the entire book as it is in this particular version. So we have to ask then, is this Quran that we have sufficient for our salvation? And can we have confidence that God is behind this book? Now, for this grand mathematical scheme in the Quran that assures us that the Quran has been preserved by God as we have it now. In this particular reading, the Egyptian 1924 edition. The Quran comprises 114 chapters. Each chapter has a number of verses, and there are two numbers that are thus associated with each chapter. The chapter number, from 1 to 114, and the number of verses within the chapter. Now, there is a mathematical relationship between these two numbers. If you add the two numbers together, you either get an even number result or an odd number result. That's elementary. You add two numbers together, you either get an even number result or an odd number result. If you do this for the entire Quran, you obviously have 114 results. And some of them are going to be even numbers. Some of them are going to be odd numbers. If you did this yourself, you will see to your surprise that exactly half of the results are even numbers and half of them are odd numbers. 57 even numbers, 57 odd numbers. What created this fine balance? Now let's go deeper. Take the 57 even number results and add them all together. You get the grand total of 6,236. Even though this total emerged from only 57 chapters of the Quran, this number, 6,236, is also the number of verses in the entire Quran. So how did that emerge from only 57 chapters? Now, let's look at the odd number results and add them all together. The sum of those 57 odd number results is 6,555. And it turns out that that number is the grand total of all of the chapter numbers of the entire Quran, the entire 114 chapter numbers. How did this fine balance occur? So that not only do we have an even number of even and odd results, but the even results total the number of verses of the entire Quran, and the odd number results is the total of all of the chapter numbers of the Quran. Now, one step further. If you did this yourself in, let's say, a computer worksheet program, you entered all of the numbers, now you have the results, you see the numbers matching at the bottom in your totals, you will see that if you put in one verse extra anywhere, or you take out one verse by changing the numbers, just make one number bigger by one or smaller by one, or you change any of the chapters, add a chapter, take away a chapter, the entire system then collapses. And what this means for me is that, to begin with, the system is there in place by God Himself. And secondly, this shows that the Quran, the one that I'm referring to, has been preserved and handed down to us over time, so we can be assured that this is the Word of God.